Before the world saw the smoke, before the tanks rolled in, before the first missile struck, Ukraine was a land of calm and courage, a country rebuilding, dreaming, and believing its future was safe. But in February 2022, the silence shattered, cut to sound of explosions. Slow-motion clips of missiles hitting cities, civilians running, chaos unfolding. Russia launched one of the largest military invasions of the 21st century, a war designed to crush Ukraine in just 3 days. But instead of surrender, Ukraine did something the world never expected. It stood and fought. The unbreakable city visuals, Kyiv's streets, civilians turning into soldiers, Molotov cocktails being made, barricades being built in Kharkiv and Mariupol. Ordinary men and women turned into defenders overnight. Farmers, teachers, engineers, all united under one flag. They didn't have the largest army, they didn't have the strongest weapons, but they had something far more powerful: the will to survive. Sound, Ukrainian national anthem, softly plays in background. This was the first move in Ukraine's unseen strategy: resistance through unity. While Russia relied on force, Ukraine relied on spirit. The world watches in shock visuals. News broadcasts, global headlines, social media clips, world leaders reacting. The world expected Ukraine to fall in a week, but what it witnessed was history in motion. President Volodymyr Zelensky refused to flee. Standing in the streets of Kyiv, he declared, "I need ammunition, not a ride." Those words became a symbol, not of politics, but of defiance. They echoed across Europe, across oceans, igniting global support. From London to Washington, from Warsaw to Tokyo, nations began sending weapons, aid, and intelligence. And in that moment, the first phase of Ukraine's genius plan was set in motion, turning global sympathy into strategic strength. Information. The invisible frontline visuals, computer screens, intelligence rooms, satellite feeds, telegram channels, flooding with updates. While Russia fought on land, Ukraine opened a new battlefield. The digital one. Hackers, coders, and cyber experts formed an invisible army, working day and night to disrupt Russian operations. From tracking troop movements to jamming communications, they made data their weapon. Every Russian tank location, every intercepted call, every satellite image turned into real-time strategy. Visual cue. Animated map showing how intelligence led to destroyed convoys. For the first time in history, a nation under attack used open-source intelligence to outsmart a superpower. This was not just defense, it was innovation under fire. The people's war visuals. Villagers feeding soldiers, grandmothers sewing camouflage nets, children writing letters to troops. In Ukraine, the line between soldier and civilian vanished. Every citizen became part of the war effort. And that was another genius move. Because when an entire nation fights as one, there's no army strong enough to break it. Soft emotional music builds as we see scenes of resilience, volunteers rescuing the wounded, rebuilding bombed homes, sharing food and bunkers. This unity was Ukraine's greatest weapon. It gave birth to courage. And courage gave birth to hope, the kind of hope that can move mountains and stop armies. When the first shock of war settled, Ukraine realized something powerful. This battle could not be won by strength alone. Russia had more tanks, more aircraft, and more missiles. But Ukraine had something Moscow could never copy: intelligence, adaptability, and the courage to rethink how modern wars are fought. From the chaos of invasion, a new idea was born to transform weakness into strength. Ukraine's command structure began to shift from traditional war tactics to a digital battlefield. Instead of meeting Russia head-on, they started fighting from the shadows using drones, coded networks, and data collected from every soldier, every phone, every satellite in the sky. Every Russian movement became a trace on the digital map. Every intercepted radio call turned into a warning for the next attack. Ukrainian engineers created software that could track convoys, predict missile paths, and direct artillery within seconds. What once took hours of decision-making was now happening in moments, and those moments were saving lives. At the same time, Ukrainian drones, small, fast, and cheap, began to dominate the skies. Built-in garages, modified by students and volunteers, these flying machines became silent hunters. They struck ammunition depots, tanks, and bridges with precision that stunned military analysts across the world. Russia's expensive war machines suddenly found themselves vulnerable to tools that cost a fraction of their price. This was not coincidence. It was a plan, a genius evolution of warfare, where creativity defeated size. Ukraine's army was no longer just a force. It was a network of minds connected through technology. Soldiers at the front, programmers in Kyiv, and intelligence officers in Europe worked as one organism. While these digital battles unfolded, Ukraine also learned how to turn Russia's strength against itself. Massive Russian convoys, moving slowly across open terrain, became easy targets. Bridges were destroyed at the perfect moment. Supply lines collapsed. Soldiers ran out of fuel, food, and communication. Confusion began to spread through enemy ranks. Behind every victory was coordination, not luck. Western intelligence and Ukrainian determination merged into something unstoppable. The world watched as the underdog began to rewrite the rules of modern conflict. But the true turning point was not just military. It was psychological. The myth of Russian invincibility started to fade. Every failed assault, every captured city, every destroyed tank chipped away at Moscow's confidence. The Russian soldiers who once believed in a quick victory began to question why they were even fighting. Inside Ukraine, morale grew stronger with every passing day. Civilians saw their resistance working. Soldiers began to believe in an end that once seemed impossible. The fear that filled the first days of invasion was replaced by determination. A collective belief that intelligence, unity, and patience could defeat a giant. This was Ukraine's genius. Not to destroy Russia's army in one strike, but to make it collapse, piece by piece, through exhaustion, confusion, and doubt. And as this invisible plan unfolded, one question began to rise across the world. Could this be the moment when a smaller nation finally outsmarts a superpower? By mid-2023, the war was no longer being fought only on the ground. It had moved into the invisible world, a war of signals, data, and code. Ukraine had quietly prepared for this shift. For months, its cyber units had studied the patterns of Russian communication, the structure of military supply networks, and even the digital habits of soldiers at the front. Out of this preparation emerged a new kind of operation, a strategy that combined cyber warfare, artificial intelligence, and psychological precision. Behind the front lines, hundreds of coders and intelligence officers worked in silence. Their goal was not to destroy cities, but to disconnect the enemy from within. They called it a digital siege. Instead of surrounding an army with tanks, they surrounded it with silence. By hacking communication lines and disrupting logistics, Ukraine began to create chaos inside the Russian chain of command. Messages failed to reach officers. Supplies arrived at the wrong locations. Convoys moved without coordination. It was confusion, not combat, that started breaking the enemy's rhythm. Every byte of data became a weapon. Ukraine used artificial intelligence to analyze Russian troop movements in real time, predicting where the next assault might come. Drones, guided by satellite images, attacked those weak points within minutes. What looked like perfect timing was actually the product of thousands of algorithms working together. A new science of warfare where code replaced cannons. Meanwhile, social media became another battlefield. Ukrainian information units launched digital counter-campaigns, exposing lies, releasing intercepted calls, and flooding the internet with verified footage of Russian failures. The goal was not just to inform, but to control perception. Every video, every leaked document, every image of a burning tank weakened the enemy's morale and questioned their purpose. Russia, used to fighting traditional wars, found itself facing an opponent that it could not see. Missiles could destroy a building, but they could not stop the truth from spreading. The more Russia tried to silence Ukraine, the louder Ukraine's story became. At the same time, Ukraine's allies joined the invisible front. Western intelligence agencies shared encrypted satellite data, while European hackers targeted Russian propaganda networks. The result was a coordinated strike that went far beyond borders, a global defense web designed to trap aggression inside its own shadow. Inside Russia, cracks began to appear. Soldiers on the ground complained of poor communication. Civilians faced power cuts after mysterious cyber incidents, and state networks suffered silent breakdowns. For the first time, the machinery of war was being dismantled without a single shot fired. But Ukraine's genius did not stop there. The same technology that disrupted the enemy also protected its own people. Emergency alert systems, mobile applications for evacuation, and real-time maps for civilians became lifelines. The country learned to survive through technology, and survival itself became an act of resistance. By the end of the year, it was clear that this was more than a war between two nations. It was a test between two eras: the old world of force and the new world of intelligence. Ukraine had proved that even a smaller country could fight a superpower, not by overpowering it, but by outsmarting it. The invisible war was reshaping the battlefield forever. And deep inside this digital storm, one thing was becoming clear. Russia's might was beginning to crumble, not from outside attacks, but from within its own confusion. The question now was simple, but haunting. How long can a superpower survive when its greatest enemy is no longer an army, but information itself? As the war raged on, Ukraine understood that battles are not only fought with bullets. Some of the most powerful victories are won in boardrooms, trade routes, and global markets, while Russia relied on weapons. Ukraine began building a new kind of resistance, an economic trap so deep that even the Kremlin could not easily escape. From the earliest months of the war, Ukrainian leaders worked quietly with their allies. Every meeting, every negotiation, every handshake was a calculated move in a global chess game. Their goal was not only to survive, but to make Russia bleed economically until the war itself became impossible to continue. One by one, nations began tightening sanctions. Banks were cut off from international systems. Companies withdrew from Russian markets, and trade routes that once fueled the Russian economy began to dry up. For every missile Russia fired, the cost of production and replacement rose higher. What looked like military pressure was actually the slow suffocation of an empire through its own economy. Ukraine's strategy was simple but brilliant. Turn global dependence into leverage. Through energy diplomacy, Kyiv convinced European countries to reduce their reliance on Russian oil and gas. It was a risky plan. For decades, Russia had used energy as a weapon, a tool to control and intimidate. But Ukraine's diplomacy broke that cycle by helping Europe diversify its energy sources and create alternative supply routes. Ukraine transformed Russia's greatest strength into a long-term weakness. Behind the scenes, Ukrainian economists and diplomats mapped out every vulnerable point in Russia's economy. They targeted industries that funded the war: oil exports, metal trade, technology imports. Each restriction, each sanction, each cancelled contract became a silent strike that weakened Moscow's ability to finance the invasion. But the genius went further. Ukraine didn't only rely on the West. It reached out to Asia, Africa, and Latin America, presenting itself not as a victim, but as a symbol of freedom standing against tyranny. Nations that once remained neutral began to feel the weight of Ukraine's story. Humanitarian aid increased, partnerships expanded, and slowly, Russia's isolation deepened. Meanwhile, Ukrainian technology companies found new ways to keep their economy alive despite the war. Farmers exported grain under missile fire. Factories relocated to safer regions and restarted production. Online services, digital payment systems, and small startups became the heartbeat of an economy determined to survive. Each successful export, each working business was a message to the world: Ukraine will not collapse. As the ruble weakened and inflation rose inside Russia, discontent began to grow. The sanctions, combined with the loss of trade and the constant drain of military spending, began to crack the image of stability that the Kremlin had built for years. In Russia's cities, prices soared. In its industries, machines went silent due to missing parts. The war that was meant to show power was now consuming that power from within. Ukraine's economic strategy proved one thing clearly: a nation doesn't always need to strike with weapons to win. Sometimes it only needs to move the world's economy in the right direction. By the end of that year, it was no longer just a military confrontation. It was a global standoff between aggression and endurance. Russia still had its armies, but Ukraine had something far stronger: a world standing behind it. And deep inside the shifting tides of diplomacy and economics, one silent truth began to echo. The more isolated Russia became, the closer Ukraine came to victory. The genius of this strategy was that it didn't aim to destroy it, aimed to exhaust. And when an empire is exhausted, it eventually collapses under its own weight. The war that started with tanks and missiles was now being reshaped by currency, trade, and trust. Ukraine had turned the economy itself into a battlefield, and the results were undeniable. As Russia's resources thinned and its influence shrank, a question began to rise in every corner of the world. Would the end of this war come not from an explosion, but from an economic implosion?